The time is now. Don't wait any longer to receive. This is about to be a life-changing day and a life-changing training for you, and I am so grateful that you're here. Before we begin, I just want to say, this is technically part 2 in a collection of trainings that I am doing this year. So, if you have not yet watched my original training entitled My Secret Weapon for Continual Flow, I'm going to invite you to pause this if you can and go back and watch that training. It is an important part 1, and I guarantee you're going to want to hear it before we really dive in here. So make sure you've watched My Secret Weapon for Continual Flow if you want to be up to date going into this training. But once you're there and ready to go, I just want to invite you, if it's safe and comfortable where you are, to just simply close your eyes with me. And we're just going to go into a moment of stillness together here. Anchoring ourselves down in the present, wherever that happens to be for you today. And I want you to give yourself permission to just temporarily let go of anything you've been holding on to, any distractions or concerns that have been tugging at your mind, anything that you keep returning to in the external realm. I just want you to let all of that go, just temporarily. Where I am recording this today, I hear a plane fly by overhead, and I just let that happen, and I invite you to let any sensations around you happen as we just get still. Becoming aware of our body, becoming aware of our breath, becoming aware of the energy within us. And in this moment, as we turn within, we open up our mind to see things differently in a way we never have before. We open up our hearts to all the goodness that is flowing in. We open up our capacity to receive and hold and circulate more than we ever have before. And from this space, let's receive a big breath in and release, feeling a fresh start to create in this moment, and receive another big breath in and release, feeling that everything you need and want is already here. And receive one more big breath in, sustaining it there for a moment at the top. Feel your destiny perfectly unfolding right now. And release. And we just take this moment and we surrender all details over to infinite intelligence, knowing that our lives are in good hands, calling forward our highest and best. And then I just want to invite you to take a moment and set an intention for our time together today. What would you like to experience? What would you like to feel? How would you like to grow in receiving, in overflow today? And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and rejoin me here on video in this moment. So I call this training, The Time Is Now. Stop waiting to receive. And I'm going to say more about that in just a moment. But I want to begin with an ancient scripture. It's one you may have heard me quote before. It's one I'm willing to bet you've at least heard somewhere from somebody before. But the ancient scripture says, "Now faith is the evidence of things not seen." Now faith is the evidence of things not seen. Now, no pun intended. I can't stop saying the word now, but we're going to come back to that word and that concept in a moment. First and foremost, I want to touch on the basic definition of faith here. The evidence of things not seen. And I want to touch on that because I just want to be very clear up front going into this training and really this entire collection of trainings. You are being invited to step into some new beliefs. They may not be what is commonly out there in the industry. They may not be what you always heard in church. They may not be what you heard from other mentors. They may not be what you got in childhood. They may not be what the majority of people in society today believe. And I just want to acknowledge, all of that is okay. All of that does not bother me, and I hope it doesn't bother you. But you're going to be invited today to step into some new beliefs that will enable you to have a new experience. We're going to talk about some metaphysical laws and principles in just a moment, and we're going to go deep, and a couple of these I have never recorded any content about before, so I'm very excited to share them with you today. But I just want to say right off the bat, please remember, we're talking about a new belief system here. It is going to feel new. It is going to feel different. It is going to feel unfamiliar, and I wanted to remind you as we got started, the definition of faith is the evidence, and we're talking about an inner knowing, an inner conviction of things unseen. You're not going to have necessarily lots and lots and lots of evidence for the new thing that you want to create, for the new thing that you desire, for the new thing that you're believing for. You're not going to have a lot of evidence for it necessarily because by definition, it's new. That's why it takes faith. You're having to believe in something not yet seen. And I just wanted to encourage somebody off the bat today. If you feel like you might be crazy, you might be delusional, you might have lost your mind, whatever expression is appropriate to use here, because you feel like I keep seeing a vision, I keep believing in something, I keep moving forward towards something, but I don't yet have the evidence yet. It's not happened yet. It's not finished yet. It's not here yet. I just wanted to encourage you. That is faith. Faith requires us to believe in with a deep inner conviction something that is not yet seen. But now, pun intended, I want to point out the key first word of that scripture that says, now faith is the evidence of things not seen. Now faith is the evidence of things not seen. And I wanted to tell you today, there's a reason I called this training what I did, and it is because faith must be operating in the now. Belief must be operating in the now. You know, what's interesting is I find there's a lot of people who have way more beliefs about the past and the future than they do the present. There's a lot of people who have all sorts of beliefs about their past and they don't even think to question them, right? One of my mentors once told me that the beliefs you really hold the most dearly are the ones you never even think to question. You don't even think twice. You don't even examine them. Why? Because you don't see it as a belief. Some of you today have beliefs that are holding you back. and you've never even questioned them. You've never even thought to do such a thing because you don't see it as a belief. What if there are some beliefs you have that don't serve you? And today you need to stop seeing them as just how it is. That's just life. That's just how the world works. What if it's not inherently how the world works? What if it's time to question some beliefs here, right? And so a lot of people have all these beliefs about the past, but they don't view them as beliefs. They just see them as history, as memories, as facts. And then there's people that have a lot of beliefs about the future, but they don't see them as beliefs. They see them as assumptions. They see them as fears. They simply see them as expectations. And yet, the only place that our belief can really be operational is the only place that really exists. Not just in our mind as a thought or an idea or an illusion, but the only place that actually exists, which is the present moment. Faith must be operating in the now. And some of us today need to form some beliefs, to shift some beliefs, to step into some beliefs that actually work for us in the now. The time is now. And I don't want you to wait to receive endlessly. I wrote down 2 things that I want to invite you to claim as a truth and an affirmation and a declaration for yourself. And if you want, you can type it and affirm it for yourself in the comments. This is my harvest season now. This is my time for overflow now. This is my time for receiving now. And again, this is a continuation on the first training that I did. I highly encourage you to watch it if you have not. But I talked about how people get stuck sitting at a metaphorical slot machine, putting more money in, telling themselves, one of these days, it's going to be my turn and my time to receive. And we want to interrupt that pattern and that cycle today. I want you to leave this training knowing it's happening now. It's harvest time now. I am receiving right now. And so there's 3 laws that I want to talk you through today. One of them you've probably heard me talk about before. 2 of them you most likely have not. In fact, I've never recorded content or significantly talked about these last 2 with clients. And so you're hearing it here first in a brand new exclusive teaching that I'm very, very excited about. But let's begin with a law that you probably have heard me or somebody else talk about before, and that is the law of cause and effect. If you're taking notes, you can write this down. The law of cause and effect. And as we go through today, we're going to go through 3 spiritual laws that support you in making this your time to receive. 3 spiritual laws that support you in making this your time to receive. So, number 1, this is the more familiar one to many of you, is the law of cause and effect. Now, there are many religions and versions of spirituality and wisdom traditions that all teach this principle, right? A very simple way of putting it is, what I choose internally is always a cause with an effect in my external world. What I choose internally is always a cause with an effect in my external world. Now, I think it's a very basic principle that, again, it is expressed and articulated and celebrated so many ways all around the world. It has been for centuries and centuries. But remember, years ago, I was working with an inner child mentor from South Africa, and he really helped me understand something with this law. He helped me understand cause and effect is not an instantaneous, automatic, overnight thing, but cause and effect requires a process. Cause and effect requires a process. And I remember this man taught me a metaphor that has just stuck with me ever since, and that is the cheesecake example. And I have a sweet tooth, and I'm happy to use a delicious example that involves cheesecake, right? He taught me that if I want cheesecake, and I put that intention out there at the level of cause, there are infinite ways for the cheesecake to get to me, right? And this is the good news, by the way, about cause and effect is you don't have to know how, and you never have to get overly attached because it's never just one pathway. There's always infinite possibilities. There's always endless pathways of how it could get to you. And so I remember this mentor, his name is Duran Geber. He would explain how somewhere or another, if the cheesecake is going to go from cause to effect, the cheesecake has to move. If the cheesecake is going to go from cause to effect, the cheesecake has to move. Now, again, there's infinite possibilities of how it can move. I could place an order on DoorDash, and it could be delivered to my door. I could go to the grocery store and buy ingredients for a cheesecake, and I could decide to make a cheesecake when I get home in my kitchen with those ingredients. Somebody could decide they're going to give me a cheesecake as a gift, and they could take an Uber, take a train, drive themselves to me, and bring me a cheesecake and show up at my door. Again, how it happens is not important, and there's infinite pathways, and bear with me in this long example here, but the point of it is, for anything to go from cause to effect, it's going to have to move. So what does that mean? Well, that means there's always going to be time in between. It's not instantaneous. There's always going to be time in between cause and effect. We don't have to know how it's going to happen. We don't have to know when it's going to happen. And it doesn't have to be a lot of time. It doesn't have to be a long process. But there is going to be an interval, a rhythm, a period of time between cause and effect. Now, why this is important for our training and our teaching today is a lot of people get very discouraged when they try to choose something new at cause, but they don't feel like it ever showed up at effect. And you're going to understand more about why that happens as we get into these laws and principles and teachings today. But one of the things that I want to say in this first point, in this first law is, you have to give whatever it is a chance to move from cause to effect. A lot of people try something new on a cause and then immediately go back to the default. A lot of people try to live in something new at cause, maybe 5 to 10% of the time, but the rest of the time it is same old, same old. A lot of people will go a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, excited about this new thing that they want to create at cause, but if it doesn't show up fast enough, they give up. And often they give up long before it ever has the chance to manifest at the level of effect. Now, this is not a universal answer to the question of why didn't it happen? Why didn't it show up for me? Why didn't it work? But I will tell you, this is a big answer to that question for many people and many situations is Did you stick with it long enough at cause to let it move from the effect? See, to use the cheesecake example, if I decide that I want cheesecake, it would be silly for me to feel sad and discouraged and angry and frustrated and deprived of it if I look around and because there's not a cheesecake right here and right now, I now think I failed. I now think that it doesn't work. I now think that I have no power. I have no agency. I don't get to have what I want, right? It would be silly for me to do that when I still have the power to choose to create a cheesecake in one of various ways, right? I still have the power. I still have the choice. I still get to have my cheesecake. It would be silly. It would be pointless to give up or to feel discouraged or to feel like a failure just because it wasn't here instantly, right? And so I want to challenge you and encourage you. Please don't give up on your own desires, your own dreams, your own vision when something that you're wanting to manifest has not shown up at effect yet. Please remember, faith is, by definition, an inner conviction about something that is not yet seen. And I want to challenge you today, if you've been on the fence, if you've given up, if you are feeling discouraged even right in this moment, I want to be a voice of encouragement and empowerment that tells you, keep the faith. Keep the faith. You're doing great. You're doing it right. You're right where you're supposed to be. Please keep the faith. And know that it doesn't have to be a long process, but it will be a process. You know, the story is told of a healer who would travel around conducting these meetings and healing people in various ways all around the world. And one day he was doing one of these meetings and somebody came up to them and they said, I have a big miracle that I need in my life. Will you be in agreement with me? I have something I'm believing for. I have a vision. I have a desire. I have a need, whatever it was. They said, I have a big miracle in my life that I need. Will you be in agreement with me? And the healer responded and said, well, that depends. Are you going to stay in agreement with me? Because when somebody asks me to believe with them for something, I don't take that lightly. I take that very seriously. And if I get into agreement with you, just understand, I'm going to stay there. When I leave this meeting tonight, I'm going to stay in that agreement. When I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm going to stay in that agreement. Even if I were to never run into you or see you again as long as I live, my word is my bond and my belief is everything to me, and I will stay in that agreement. But are you going to stay in that agreement? That's the question. And I wanted to share that story because I really believe there are many people who set something into motion at cause. And it's their agreement with themselves. It's their agreement with God. It's their agreement with life. But they don't even stay in their own agreement. And so they step into, I now choose to believe from this day forward, all my needs are met and more. And then they don't stay in agreement. From this day forward, I am living in overflow. And then they don't stay in that agreement. From this day forward, I have a peace that passes understanding. All is well. I trust all things are working together for me. And then they don't stay in that agreement. And I see this happen all the time in the online space because people love the idea of a decision and they love the idea of this word, decide, decide, decide. And I made a decision. I am deciding this. And I remember coach one time said to me, anybody can claim they made a decision, but only time will tell if they actually live into the decision they made. What happens when they wake up the next morning? Are they still living in that decision? What happens when the evidence doesn't materialize immediately? Are they still living in that decision? What happens when it takes longer than they thought? Are they still living in that decision? And so it's so important that we remember cause and effect is always a process. Doesn't have to be a long process. We don't have to know how it's going to happen. It is a process, but we are continually at cause. And the other reason I wanted to bring up this law as we get started today is most of the things that people complain about or want to change or wish were different in their lives, most of those things are at the level of effect. If it is an external thing, if it is in your external world, if it is an external circumstance, it is happening at the level of effect. And the tricky thing is, everybody encounters effects that they don't like. But our power doesn't lie in trying to change the effects. Our power lies at cause in the now. Let me say that sentence again. Everybody experiences effects, but our power to transform something does not lie in the effects. Our power always lies at cause in the now. And so our job is not to try to force the effects to change. Our job is not to negotiate with effects, to rearrange effects, to push back against effects, to manufacture and manipulate effects. That is not our job. Our job is to stand in our power at cause. Now, when it comes to this topic of receiving that this teaching revolves around today, where it gets tricky is that we are often talking to people about the effects. That's where the conversation revolves around. And yet, are you getting it yet? That's not where our power lies. So no wonder people feel powerless. No wonder people feel stuck. No wonder people feel like they have no power to change anything or choose anything different. And so often in the receiving conversation, people find themselves endlessly longing for the effects to change, but they don't know how to change. They don't know how to do anything different. They don't know how to use their power at cause, and so they end up endlessly waiting for a set of new effects. And by the way, this goes beyond receiving. This goes beyond the money conversation. If there is any area of your life in this moment in which you are not happy with the effects that are showing up now, but all you're doing is sitting around longing for a different set of effects, please don't stay there. Not another moment, not another day unnecessarily. Please don't stay there. Your power lies at cause. And if you can change at cause, I promise you, you can have a new set of effects. My clients know, my community knows, I have been teaching cause and effect for years and years in sessions and programs and trainings and talks and masterminds and all sorts of things. I believe in this so much. All of the effects of your life are subject to change, but you will not change them by being mad at the effects, by fighting the effects, by pushing against the effects. You will only change them by being in your power at cause. Now, before we move on to law number 2, there's a principle I want to speak to here using this first law, the law of cause and effect. And that is, I want to talk about the energetic distinction of debt energy versus investment energy. Debt energy versus investment energy. And this might be uncomfortable or a little awkward or a little confrontational for somebody out there, but hang with me, breathe through it. We're going to be okay. I want to talk about debt energy versus investment energy because I told you everybody uses the word investment for everything in this industry, but not many people are actually tapped in to these energetic dynamics. So let's talk about, not just on a fiscal level, but what is the energy of debt versus investment. I believe this might blow your mind in the best of ways today, okay? Here we go. Debt is choosing something that feels good now and accepting potentially negative effects or delayed effects later. The energy of debt is choosing what feels good now and accepting negative effects or delayed effects or consequential effects later. Now, let me give a disclaimer, and if you've followed me for any length of time, if you've taken stuff from me before, you should know this, but I'm going to reinforce it anyway here. There is no shame and no negativity and no judgment ever, ever, ever in this space. I am always going to be coming to you from a message of unconditional love, and I will be the first to say, I have taken on medical debt, I have taken on student loan debt, I have taken on credit card debt, I have taken on business debt, I have taken on personal debt. I have plenty of experience with debt in my life, and I want you to know, there is nothing to be ashamed of. There is nothing to judge yourself for. There is nothing wrong with you if you currently in this moment have debt in any form, okay? Let's get that out of the way. There's nothing wrong, nothing shameful, nothing judgment worthy about debt. But I want you to understand the principle of this that goes so far beyond just finances, right? Debt is saying, I like what I get at cause right now, and I'm going to accept whatever the effects are later. And again, no judgment on ever making that choice because I have been there, done that many times. I have made that choice. But do you feel the energy of this? Do you see the pattern here? Especially as it pertains to cause and effect. Because this is not just about money. If you eat something or drink something or take something that you know you're going to regret, that decision might be coming from a debt kind of energy that says, I like what I get at cause right now. I'll deal with the effects later. If you gossip and talk bad about somebody to a mutual friend, even though you know you shouldn't, right? That might create this same energetic experience of, it felt good at cause now, and I'll just take whatever the effects are later. And so, again, this is not about nobody can ever take on debt. I just want you to see the energy of debt only has us looking at the cause, never the effect. And we tell ourselves, I'll get to the effects later. Now, investment is a very different energy. I would even argue an opposite energy, okay? Investment is choosing in the now based on the effects I want to experience later, even if it's delayed gratification. Investment is choosing in the now based on the effects I want to experience later, even if it's delayed gratification. So somebody who truly does choose to invest in their business is saying, this might be uncomfortable now, but I choose it for the effects in the future of the business I want to see. Somebody who chooses to invest in their health and their fitness and their body right now may say, it doesn't feel like what I want to do, to be doing this workout right in this moment, but it is an investment, and I care about my body and my health and my future. I care about the effects. even if it's delayed gratification, right? And so I want you to see they're opposite energies. And again, please don't think this is just about finances. Hear the principle of this. Hear the energy of this. Debt is saying, I only care about the experience right now. I don't think about the effects it's creating. Investment says, my priority is the effects I'm creating. This is why I was saying to the client that I mentioned this story about the other day, it should not be that we have investments that have nothing to do with our future. It should not be that we have investments that have nothing to do with a return. It should not be that we have investments that we're not expecting anything from later, right? If you truly are investing, that should come with an expectation of the effects you're setting into motion. If you truly are investing, that should come with an expectation of the effects you are setting into motion. This is why I always tell people, please never make an investment with me of any kind without having an expectation behind the energy. Again, I'm going to say this as many times as I can here. I'm not saying don't take out a mortgage. I'm not saying don't use funding. Some of the wealthiest people in the world use literal debt very, very wisely. That's not the point here. The energy of it is what I want you to feel into, right? But if it's going to be an investment, know what is the expectation behind it. I've stopped people before from signing up to work with me, and at the very least, slowed them down and moved them into a pause moment and said, let's make sure you know where your energy and intention and vision are at before you move forward with this. And I am passionate about this because I've seen so many people sign up for things and invest in things over the years, and they do so with an energy of, well, we'll see how it goes. They do so with an energy of, I hope I get what I paid for. They do so with an energy of, I don't know if this is gonna change anything, but can't hurt to try, right? And it's not a sound investment when that is what you're setting into motion. I don't care how good the coach or the mentor or the program or the thing is. It's not a sound investment if that is the energy, if those are the beliefs that you're doing it with and setting into motion. So, you are always at cause. Your power lies at cause. But it is your job to set into motion at cause what you want to see at effect. Don't get overwhelmed by the effects. Don't get lost in the effects. Don't get swept up in thinking the effects are ultimate reality. You still have power at cause. But the best way to use that power is to set into motion at cause what you want to see at effect. Now, one last thing I want to say here. Self-love is consistently choosing at cause what you actually want to experience at effect. Self-love is choosing at cause what you actually want to experience at effect. When people do not love themselves, they make self-destructive decisions. You've seen this, right? You've observed this. You have examples that can come to mind. When someone's in a dysfunctional pattern, when someone's in a self-destructive pattern, they make choices over and over and over with either no regard to the effects that they're having, no regard to the effects down the road, or even choices that the effects are knowingly going to be awful, regrets, problems down the road, but they just keep going. because they don't love themselves enough to stand in their power at cause and to choose something at cause consistently that they actually want to live in at effect. And I want to remind you today, the more you love yourself, the more you will honor your creative power and stay at the level of cause and choose over and over again consistently what you actually want to experience at effect. That brings me to law number 2 that I want to talk about today, a newer one for this community that I'm excited to share. Law number 2, which is the law of the seed. Law of the seed. And again, many ways that we could articulate all of these laws, but the way that I want to articulate and define this one for our purposes today is everything begins in seed form. Everything begins in seed form. Another way that we could articulate this is you cannot reap what you did not sow. There can never be a harvest if there was not a seed. You cannot reap what you did not sow. There cannot be a harvest if there was never a seed. This is really an extension of the law we just talked about, right? We're really going to get nerdy and learn some things today, so I hope you're ready for the School of Receiving today. The School of Prosperity, the School of Overflow with Stephen Lovegrove today. Law of cause and effect says everything begins as a cause. You can never have at effect what you did not set into motion at cause, right? That's law of cause and effect. There cannot be an effect that you did not set into motion or somebody did not set into motion at cause. Now, law of the seed takes that principle and takes it a step further. And I'm going to show you in a moment, but see the parallels here? Everything begins as a cause, everything begins as a seed. You cannot reap what you did not sow. You cannot experience the effects of what you did not set into motion at cause. There cannot be effects without there first being a cause. There cannot be a harvest if there is not a seed first. Do you see the parallels? And so when we talk about this phrase, and I know this phrase can be cheesy. I know this phrase is a trigger for some people to some awful religious worlds of their past. I know this phrase is often joked about or maligned or misunderstood. But when we talk about this idea of people sowing a seed, we're talking about very foundational metaphysical truth here. The law of cause and effect and the law of the seed. It is just science. Now, Dr. Mike Murdock, I want to shout out, who has done extensive research and teaching and writing on this area of wisdom and has really helped me understand this. Let's talk for a few moments about the law of the seed. Because I believe today I'm going to help you understand some things that may have stumped you in the past or kept you confused or kept you frustrated, but they're going to make sense today and we're going to connect some dots for you today. So, have you ever heard people talk about a principle like, you have been given all things, or you have the keys to the kingdom, or you have everything you need and want already within you? Have you ever heard ideas like that? Maybe even from me. I'll admit, I teach principles like those and including those, right? I believe you have been given all things. I believe you have everything you need and want within you, etc., etc. But people hear that, and I realize people get confused and frustrated when they hear that. Because where is it? If all things have been given to me, where is the thing I'm waiting on? If I have the keys to the kingdom, where is the thing I'm waiting on? If I have everything I need and want already within me, where is the thing I'm waiting on? And I want to speak to this today because one of the things that I am most passionate about this year and in this season is we are putting out more and more free content and resources and teaching that can be accessed by 2.9 billion people and counting all over the world in over 125 countries. I am so proud of that. And as I speak to a larger global audience than ever before, and thank you for being here and thank you for being part of it, I am passionate about, I don't want people to be confused. I don't want people to be frustrated. I don't want people to feel stuck and hopeless. I don't want people to give up. I don't want people to just conclude that none of this works or they must be doing it wrong. Something is wrong with them. They're broken. They're not loved. I know that those are very real places that people end up in their inner world when they try to work with a principle that they get taught and it doesn't work and they don't know what to do. And I am passionate about clearing up the confusion and ending the frustration and getting you unstuck. I am passionate about that. I am fighting for that here today and always. So I understand. People hear these principles and they get confused. But there's something vital that I want you to understand as we talk about the law of the seed, okay? God gives everything to us in the form of a seed, not a harvest. God gives everything to us in the form of a seed, not a harvest. I remember T.D. Jakes using the example, and it always stuck with me, that there are so many people who will be praying for a table, praying for a table, praying for a table. But they don't understand God is not sending it to them in the form of a table. God might be sending it to them in the form of wood that they could turn into a table. And I think this principle is so important because I personally felt like I suddenly had access to $1 billion of resources, to $1 billion of consciousness, to $1 billion of opportunity the moment that I realized, wait a minute, everything comes to me in the form of a seed, not a harvest. See, this is the principle of cause and effect, but it takes it a step further in understanding and honoring and recognizing the potential that lies within you and within your life that you might have been missing up to this point. A lot of you are judging what you have today by judging just your past harvest. And by the way, if we're talking about a minute ago or an hour ago or a day ago, that is still your past harvest, yes? And here we are together connected in the now across all space and time. Don't judge what you've been given simply by the past harvest. Because God gives everything to us first as a seed. How do I know if I'm judging just based on a past harvest? Well, if you're judging your self-worth by your accomplishments up to this point, you're not looking at seed, you're looking at just a past harvest. If you're assessing how safe and secure you are based on the number in any particular bank account you have, you are judging not based on the seed, but based on a past harvest. If you're just looking at the house that you live in now, if you're just looking at what you've done up to this point in your life, if you're just looking at where you were born or your childhood or what is currently around you circumstantially in this moment right now, all of that is fine and probably a lot to be grateful for in some of that, I would hope. But never make the mistake of selling yourself short by only looking at a past harvest and missing the infinite possibility and power and potential that lies within a seed. I'm here to tell you today, God gives everything to us first as a seed, not as a completed harvest. But seed is so valuable, right? Not to be graphic and not to have like sixth grade boy humor here, but can we just acknowledge the biological truth? Not a single human being would be here watching this training today if it wasn't for a seed. That might be a funny example, but we have to acknowledge all life form begins this way. It doesn't begin as a full-grown adult. It doesn't begin at the end of an evolution. It doesn't begin as a completed harvest. It all begins in the form of a seed. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this training is there are a lot of people that I believe are going to watch this, and you have been waiting for a harvest, working for a harvest, praying for a harvest. Whatever a harvest happens to be for you, but in the process of doing so, you have been undervaluing and overlooking what you have in your hands. The seed that you have been given. Do you hear the principle, the energy, the truth of this? That there are people praying for a harvest, waiting for a harvest, working for a potential one day off in the future harvest, and they're missing the gold mine of what is in their hand, of what they've already been given in the form of a seed. And I want to tell you today, what you have in your hand, no matter what it is a precious gift. Because every seed is a gift. This moment is a gift. It's also a seed. This day is a gift. It's also a seed. This training, I am sharing with you as a gift and as a seed. And now it's in your life, and what you do with it and how you respond to it and what you do next is up to you. Right? What you do is up to you. But every seed is a gift. And truly, this is where I believe many people have a disconnect with the infinite supply available to them. They are confused because they don't have a completed harvest dropped off at their door. But they have a barn that is full of millions and millions of seeds that they could plant. And I wanted to interrupt this cycle, this pattern, this stuckness for somebody today who is staring out the window at a field saying, when is it going to become a harvest? When is it going to become a harvest? And behind you is a barn full of millions and millions and millions of little baby seeds. And you can do with them whatever you want. You can use that gift however you want. You could plant whatever you want. Please don't go forward from this training and ever again make the mistake of feeling like a harvest is far away, a harvest will never come, a harvest has been withheld from you, while you simultaneously overlook a barn that contains millions and millions and millions of seed. I challenge you, I invite you today, start recognizing everything that exists within your life in the form of potential right now. Start to recognize everything that exists within your life in the form of potential right now. Because it's all a seed. Your energy today is a seed. Your time today is a seed. The gifts you have within you are a seed. And there's an important principle as we begin to recognize what we already have, what we've already been given, what we have in our hand, in our barn, in our lives, right? Don't ever judge the seed for being small. It is a tiny little kernel of potential. It's going to be small. Don't ever judge the seed for being small. Right? One of the things I'm most passionate about with this training is helping people to open their eyes to the inner gold mine within them, within their lives, within their business that they've been stepping over and overlooking and missing up to this point. I want to help you today. Start to get so good at recognizing potential everywhere you see it. And don't judge it for being in seed form. Don't judge it for being small. I wrote down these thoughts here. Seed always begins in the invisible realm with our mind. Seed always begins with what is already in our life and in our hand. Seed always begins looking nothing like the harvest. And I really want to say today, some of you have missed the potential in what is already yours, what is already in your life, what is already flowing to you in this season. You've missed the potential of it because it doesn't look big enough or it doesn't look like the harvest. Some of you won't start writing or recording or creating something because you have a judgment on the version that you create right now not looking like the ultimate harvest. What if that's okay? Some of you won't put yourself out there and date right now because you don't feel in this moment that you are the absolute highest and best version of yourself that you're ever going to be in the course of your lifetime. What if that's okay? Some of you won't practice giving and circulating money with intention and vision and purpose because you have a judgment on, well, it wouldn't be very much. That wouldn't make a difference anyway. That's not probably even worth doing. And I just want to say today, never judge the fact that the seed starts out small. Never judge the fact that the seed doesn't look like the harvest. I am telling you, that principle changed my life because there have been answers in places I never thought to look. There have been clients and connections and mentors in places I never would have thought to look. There have been genius, massive wealth building ideas in places I would have never thought to look. There have been friends and opportunities and dreams come true just waiting for me in places I never would have thought to look. And when you start to understand that life gives us everything in the form of a seed, in the form of an idea, in the form of potential, when you start to realize that, you wake up to the wealth, to the gold mine, to the overflow that is already in your life. And you stop taking the seed for granted and you start doing something with it. You know, the old preachers used to say, if what you have in your hand is not enough to meet your need, turn it into a seed. If what you have in your hand is not enough to meet your need, turn it into a seed. And we're going to get to this principle a little more in just a moment with the third law that I want to teach. But let me just say while we're here, when you stop judging the seed, because it can't do everything for you in this moment, and it's not as big as you wish it was, and it's not the end-all be-all, and it's not every single desire and dream come true, and it doesn't look like all of your harvest. When you stop judging the seed for all these things, it frees you up to use the seed to keep growing, to keep increasing, to keep expanding, to keep evolving, to keep moving forward. And it always grows. And it always becomes more as long as we don't judge what first shows up in seed form. You know, I remember when I started practicing giving every single time I received over a decade ago. I will never forget the first time I did it. I had chosen a percentage that I was going to give. And I started to get excited because I just had a knowing in my soul. This is about to change my life. This is about to be a whole new season. This is about to set something into motion. And I was right about that, by the way. And it's been 12 going on 13 years, and I've never looked back, right? But I remember I had chosen a set percentage, and I did the math the next time I got paid, and I calculated it, and it was around $40 out of that paycheck that I was now going to give. And I remember going into an ATM, and it was not a big amount of money, but I was on top of the world. I was excited. There was a part of me and a voice inside my head that said, you've never done this before. How do we know this will work? Are you really going to do this? That $40 could be yours. That $40 could be spent elsewhere. But I had enough faith to say, no, I'm doing this. I'm doing this. And so I went to the ATM. I took out the $40 I gave. I gave to an organization that had blessed me. I gave to an organization that had changed my life in that moment. I gave to a place where I felt spiritually connected and got what I needed for my soul. And I can honestly say, I never regret anything that I gave. Not to that organization, not to any of the dozen cents. I have never regretted my giving any and all of this time for over a decade. You know, we've been getting a lot of questions from people as my first training and this collection of teachings has gone out around the world. We've been getting questions from people about, how do I do this? How do I start? What do I need to do? Because I realize this is a brand new thing for so many people out there. You know, I actually got a message the other day from somebody who said, I heard you teach the principle of giving years and years ago in Money Flow Forever. But like the person that you shared about in your example, I also didn't have a nonprofit that I really felt drawn to support. I didn't have somewhere to give. I didn't have somewhere that I felt good about giving to. And it was perfect divine timing for me when you put this teaching out and you shared this invitation. Because they said, you know, you have spoken a word for me so many times over the years. And I feel a change within myself every single time that I hear you speak. And I would love to give here. That feels amazing to me. And so people have been messaging saying, I hear this invitation. It feels good. I want to take you up on it. How do I begin? How do I do this? And I really do invite people. Choose a percentage that feels good for you in this moment. Start with whatever percentage you feel comfortable with or called to. I recommend 2% on the low end, 11% on the high end for people starting out somewhere in that range, somewhere in the middle, whatever feels good to you. You don't want it to be something that psychs you out every time you do it. You want it to be something that you can joyfully do from the energy of more than enough. But I challenge you, don't wait until you're in a different financial reality to begin using the seed that you have in your hand on all levels. Start right where you are. That is where the power lies. And let me just say one thing that I particularly love about this, since we have released this collection of teachings and people have begun to participate, is over the years, we have never had any form of tiered pricing for my coaching and services. I'm not against that. I'm not completely opposed or closed-minded to that. It's just not something we've done. We have had free content and then we've had paid offerings and programs and services. And what I love is this new flow that we have set up in my community allows anyone who resonates with my teaching, who is learning from me, who is blessed by my message, by my frequency, by my work. It allows for anyone like that to be able to participate and participate in their own way and on a level that works for them proportionately. And I love that. I love that. Because the truth is, I really always have seen people equally, whether somebody is an aligned client or not, whether somebody can afford something or they can't, whether somebody is right for a program or not. I've always viewed all people equally. And by the way, I don't have a judgment on the business model. It is still the business model that we use for my one-on-one client spots, etc. But I love having an option where, as we put more and more out into the world, particularly spiritual teaching, if this speaks to you, if this blesses you, if this shifts you and transforms you and benefits your life, you have the ability to partner with me as a coach, as a teacher, as a leader, doing this healing work of ministry in the world. You have the opportunity to partner with me in that at your own level. And you get to choose that, and that feels so good to me. So wherever you're giving, I challenge you, start where you are. Pick a percentage that works for you and do that. And by the way, let me just say, while we're on this topic, somebody asked me, is there a subscription link you can send me where I can just get it set up and know that it's there? And listen, if you want to give in that way, my team will happily set something up for you. But can I just make a personal recommendation here? I actually don't recommend, if you want my advice or coaching or answer on this, I actually don't recommend that you give in an automated subscription way. I understand a lot of churches and ministries and organizations love that setup, because it allows them to have a predictability to the giving and the money that comes in, etc. I certainly understand that. No hate on that. But there's a lot of you that are stepping into giving as a spiritual practice and an energy practice for the very first time in your life, or for the very first time that you've really had your energy behind it, that you've done it in this way. And if that's you, I don't believe it actually benefits you to be on autopilot with it. I don't believe it benefits you to have an auto subscription going, right? My team might say, well, we would appreciate that, but I'm looking out for you. I don't actually think that benefits you, because I want you to think about the value of the seed you're putting into the ground and the assignment you are giving it, and what you are setting into motion. And I want you to take that seriously every time you give. I want you to have that opportunity every time you give. And so let me just say, whether you're giving here or giving elsewhere, wherever you feel called, my recommendation is, if you can, take a few more moments each day, each week, each month out of your life to do this. Maybe consider not doing the automatic autopilot subscription approach, but rather being a little bit more intentional and purposeful and conscious as you start to practice this, because there is a power that begins to work in your life the minute you understand what has been in your hand all along. I can honestly say, that $40 ATM moment changed my life. I mean, I'm here in a completely different world and career and financial reality. I'm here talking about it all these years later. That moment changed my life. That day changed my life. And I invite somebody today to step into that adventure for themselves. Listen, if you resonate with me, with my teaching, with my work, I would love to be your partner in that adventure. And I promise, I will always make this good ground and stay in agreement with you. Like the healer, I told you the old story about if we get in agreement, I I hope you're staying in it because I'm staying in that agreement. And so if you are partnering with me on this new adventure, I'm going to see your giving come through the PayPal link. But I also want you to message me as you watch this training and let me know. I want to know that this is that life-changing day and moment in your story. I want to know that you are stepping into this adventure for yourself. As I was preparing this, I wrote these things down because I really strongly, intuitively felt them for somebody, and I don't know who it's for, but I did feel led to say them. I really believe somebody is going to step into this adventure for themselves and have their first six-figure year in the business that you've ever had. I believe somebody else is going to step into this adventure for themselves and make their first million. Still another, I believe, is going to step into this adventure and go to the next level that has been evading you up to this point and finally blow up in the way that you desire and truly be seen around the world. And I see that vision already. I am believing in what is yet unseen in your life already, and I cannot wait to celebrate with you. But if you are that person stepping into this adventure, message me and let me know. Last thing I want to say before we go to law number 3 here is, this is the mindset of a giver. This is the mindset of a giver. They view every single harvest as coming with more seed. Do you feel the power in that? When a giver receives, that doesn't end the story. That doesn't end the flow. That doesn't end the cycle for them, right? This is the whole principle of continual flow. If I keep sowing seed, I'm going to keep having a harvest. If I keep giving, it's going to keep coming back to me. It's going to keep being multiplied. There's always going to be more on the way, and the spiritual principle is true. A giver always has something to give. A sower always has seed to sow. This is an identity level thing for me. I identify myself as a giver, so I always have something to give. I identify myself as a sower, and the text promises God always gives seed to the sower, so I affirm I always have seed to sow. And so the mindset of a giver is, when the harvest comes in, the harvest always comes, bringing even more seed. And they turn around and they plant some more. So the wealthiest client that I've ever had, at least to my memory and to my knowledge, was talking to me one day. And we were talking about spiritual laws, and we were talking about principles of giving, etc. And I will never forget, this client said to me, Stephan, this principle, I've never heard it in these terms. I've never thought about it as a law. I've never heard, the spirituality behind it before. But this principle is not new to me. This principle makes sense to me because in what really was, in this case, a dynasty of generational wealth, she told me, this is what I was always taught growing up, and this is what we have always taught our kids. That when you receive that money, it is valuable seed in your hands, and it is your job to do something with it. It's not just your job to save it in fear. It's not just your job to stack it up somewhere. It's not just your job to spend it. It's your job to recognize that the money you have received is very valuable seed, and you are meant to work with it. In all sorts of ways, in many different ways, you are meant to honor it as seed. That brings me to number 3, and that is the law of the harvest. Number 3, the law of the harvest. And I hope you see, we started with cause and effect to anchor in a principle that I know many of you would be more familiar with, but cause and effect and seed time and harvest are so connected, and I hope you're seeing that now. And so Spiritual law number 3 that I want to touch on today is the law of the harvest, which says the harvest is always exponentially greater than the seed. The harvest is always exponentially greater than the seed. Now, I hope you realize how serious I am about this as a literal, real, metaphysical principle, right? Last week, we talked about the energy of sowing versus spending. And I talked about how spending energy says I use it now, it's gone, and I have no reason to expect it to show up again. I spend it now, it's gone, and I have no reason to expect it back again, right? Because spending is just spending. It's not planting. It's not putting anything into the ground. It has nothing to do with harvest. Spending from that paradigm is just spending. But sowing comes with a requirement. Sowing comes with a guarantee. Sowing comes with a chain of events that is now irreversibly set into motion. One of the ancient Jewish wisdom texts says, as long as the earth remains, there will always be seed, time, and harvest. As long as the earth remains, there will always be seed, time, and harvest. Do any of you remember when you learned about something like the law of attraction or whatever basic, 101 personal growth or spirituality principle? And do you remember when you suddenly had the realization, oh my God, this is really important for me to learn and for me to honor and for me to work with in my life, because this is a law. As you've heard me jokingly say many, many times, the law is the law is the law is the law. It works for every person every time. It does not matter if you watch Real Housewives or Netflix educational documentaries or no TV. The law is the law is the law is the law, right? So the law of gravity is not for you or against you. It just is. It is a law. And maybe you remember when you first learned about something like the law of attraction, and you remember thinking, I better use this information to my advantage, because I'm starting to realize that this law has existed with or without my participation. I'm starting to realize this law has always been here. And it is playing out perfectly every second of every day, whether I am even consciously aware of it or not. So I better learn this law, and I better start working with it. Anybody remember that moment? I am praying that this will be that level of moment for people watching this today, when you realize, as long as the earth remains, this law remains. There will always be seed time and harvest. You might as well work with the law, because it is a law. And the law guarantees the harvest is always exponentially greater than the seed. It will not necessarily be immediate, because we talked about the process of cause and effect. There is a seed time and there is a harvest. And it will not necessarily be instantaneous, because those are two distinct points, but there will be a harvest. The law guarantees it, and it will be exponentially more. The law guarantees it. And so, do you see the contrast here? Spending is when you make a decision just for temporary purposes, and then it's done and gone. Sowing is when you set something into motion with a vision in mind. Now, let me be very clear. There's nothing wrong with spending. There's nothing wrong with saving. But spending is not sowing and does not produce the same results. Saving is not sowing and does not produce the same results. And when I started to understand this, I started to get excited. And particularly when a large, say a client pay in full of my biggest package would hit my account. It was already a decision I had made. It was already decided. It was already a habit that of course I'm going to give. First thing, before I do anything else, I'm going to give. But I started to get excited about, this is the best thing I could do before I do anything else with the money. Sowing is the most valuable thing I can do right now, because spending uses the money and it's gone. Saving stashes the money and hopes I don't have to use it. Sowing turns it into more. Sowing, I wrote this down and I loved this sentence. Sowing is what people do when they believe in a future. And I thought about the proverb that said, without vision, the people perish. And I really felt led to sit with this today because I believe that there are a lot of people out there who have felt discouraged, who have felt hopeless, who have lost their vision recently. And I pray that this teaching finds you at just the right time, and that this is a day, this is a moment where you pick the vision back up, where you start to see it again, where you start to believe again. I want you to believe in your dreams. I want you to believe in your vision. I want you to believe in a future. Sowing is what people do who believe in a future. And you get to decide what you want to set into motion with that future. You get to decide the kind of world that you want to build and create and live in when you sow. And I'll just speak for myself and say, I can't speak for everyone and everything and everywhere that you could possibly give to, but I can speak for myself and say with absolute conviction, this is good ground. This is good ground. And I can say that for so many reasons. I say this is good ground because every single day I spend time with God, in presence, in stillness, just listening for and being available for. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And I listen for and I make myself available to receive. What message am I meant to share with my community today? What does somebody need to see? What does somebody need to hear in this moment? And as I get ready to serve and to teach and to make content like this for you, I tend to my energy field. I believe that we are all generative beings, that we are responsible to generate the energy, the frequency, the culture of our lives. And I work on my own energy fields and frequency and culture so that when you connect to a teaching, to a broadcast, to a video just like this one, there is an instant energy that you feel. And there is a message that speaks to you powerfully. There is something that heals you, that shifts you, that takes you higher. I do everything in my power to make this good ground as a place where you can come and be uplifted. And specifically on a giving level. Every time you give here, I want you to know we will always, always, always continue the circulation. What that means is every single time you give, you are working with the laws and principles of circulation and impact and increase and seed time and harvest in your own life, but so are we, which only extends and expands and multiplies the circulation. And so when you give, we turn around and give 22% every single time to organizations and groups and ministries and individuals and healers who are impacting the world on a daily basis. The last time we added it up, just the organizations that we are giving to, support over 150 million people around the world. They are all handpicked by me. They are all a personal heart connection for me and my work. They are all places I feel so good about giving to. And so when you give, we give, and the circulation continues, and what you give stays in circulation in countless ways, making an impact. But this is good ground. And there are so many places out there that are good ground. And I just want you to get excited about this idea today. When I give, I expect a harvest. And I expect a harvest that is greater than my seed because the law guarantees it. I wrote down some affirmations that you can work with today. Try these on. I trust that there is always a harvest. I trust that the harvest is always exponentially greater than the seed. I trust that I am a giver and I will always have something to give. I trust that I am a sower and I will always have seed to sow. I trust that what I give always comes back to me. I trust that my giving is multiplied in the world and in my life in every possible way. I trust that it is harvest time now. I trust that there is something for me to receive right now. I trust. And I wanted to leave you with today, before we do an affirmative prayer, because I just can't resist, I wanted to leave you with 3 ways to expedite your harvest. Right? The whole energy of this training is, it's here, it's now, it's time to receive. I wanted to end with 3 ways to expedite your harvest. And by the way, before I get into them, can you just feel, if you know that you have seed in the ground, you never have to sweat it. You know what you can expect. You know what the law and principle guarantees. You know, as long as the earth remains, there is seed time and harvest. You know what is on the way. You know what is coming, right? And I hope you feel that you don't have to sweat it. We're going to talk about these things just for fun to expedite your harvest, because, using this metaphor, why not be a great farmer if you're going to have something in the ground, right? But do you feel the peace of just knowing, of course I have a harvest? This is one reason I really challenge people, and I invited you in the first training. If you're going to do this, start writing down, start typing, start keeping track of the intentions you set and what you set into motion and the assignment that you give every seed, every time. Because I will tell you, nothing encourages me, nothing reassures me, nothing builds my faith more than going back to my lists and realizing seed time and harvest, seed time and harvest, seed time and harvest. I can track it and celebrate it over and over and over again. And I want you to be able to have that for yourself. And you can have that for yourself. And today gets to be that life-changing day. For me, it was $40 in the ATM. It could be $40 for you if you want to join me in that $40 ATM moment. It can be whatever amount you choose, whatever amount is right for you today. But today can be the beginning of something new for you. This law has always been at work. Now you get to work with it. That's a powerful day. So, how to expedite your harvest? Well, number 1, be a continual sower. Be a continual sower. I really believe the reason giving worked for me and changed my life, and I got to experience firsthand the world of the generous gets larger and larger and larger. I really believe the reason it worked is I was so committed from the beginning to keep giving that I didn't pull my seed out of the ground out of doubt. And because I was already committed, I'm going to keep sowing, keep sowing, keep sowing. I didn't get stuck in that cause-effect discouragement where now I'm attached and obsessed and overanalyzing. I'm tracking this one seed. If this one seed doesn't turn into something, I give up, I quit, I don't believe in any of this. I wasn't doing that because I had already decided this is a new way of life for me. And what do I have to lose? And why would I not step into something where I have a guaranteed harvest that is greater than my seed? So, number one, just make a decision. Be a continual sower. Let the cause take root and have effect. Let the seed turn into harvest. Don't rip it up out of the ground. Number two, nourish your seeds. Nourish your seeds. And in the spirit of today's teaching, we could also say, nourish your seeds with faith. You know, it is wild how the physical illustrates the metaphysical here. I was looking up things. This is so nerdy, you guys, but this is how I am. This is who I am. I was looking up things, getting ready for this training from the Fine Gardening Magazine and Gardeners Association, okay? And I just wanted to say 3 tips that stood out to me from them about this principle of nourishing your seeds. First of all, they said you've got to find the right containers. You've got to find a container where the seed has space to grow, where there is good ground, or we could say good soil, and where it will receive care. It's just wild. The physical illustrates the metaphysical here. See what I mean? Find the right containers. You've got to have good ground. Number 2, I noticed they said, take care of the environment. If you're going to plant a seed, why would you make it as difficult as possible for that seed to grow? Why would you give it a toxic environment? Why would you abandon it or neglect it, right? If you have seed in the ground, take care of its environment. Surround it with belief. Surround it with faith. Surround it with expectation. And number 3, I noticed that they said, keep records of your seeds. And I just wanted to start dancing all over this condo because I thought they are making the point for me. Thank you, Fine Gardening Magazine. Because have I not been trying to push to you all? There is a reason to start giving your seed an assignment, to start writing it down, and to start keeping track. It will blow your mind what happens next when you do. And I could not believe that an important tip that Fine Gardening wanted to share is keep record of your seeds. You will expedite your harvest and have a better harvest if you keep records of your seeds. That really says it all on that point. Number 3, to expedite your harvest, expect harvest now and always. You know, I remember talking with a client who was going deeper with this principle this year, but she has also been a giver for many years. And I was sharing with her how, when you know, like you've got 5 seeds in the ground, you've got 10 seeds in the ground, you've got 20 seeds in the ground. When you start to do this deliberately with intention, when you start to track this, when you start to do it as a way of life, when you start to keep track of it, you really do, as I said in the last training, get to a point where it's always harvest time. You're not waiting for a few months down the road. You're not waiting for one particular season. You're not waiting for one particular time of year. You get to a point where, of course, it's harvest time. Because I have so much seed in the ground. And the place you want to be in your inner world is that I expect harvest now and always. I expect to receive now and always. No more waiting. I expect it now. My faith works in the now. Let's close our eyes one more time. And let's just move into a prayer space. I am so thankful in this moment for every person who is connected to this training. Thank you for their decision to follow their intuition, to respond to something they saw online, to say yes to a training that would support their receiving. Thank you for the yes that lives within them. Thank you for the faith that lives within them. Thank you for who they are. Thank you for all of their gifts. Thank you for everything that is in their hands and in their life right now. God, we move into a space of gratitude. And in light of this teaching today, we say thank you. Thank you, God, that even if we just have a little seed, that is more than enough. It contains infinite possibilities within it. Thank you, God, for widening our perspective and opening our eyes today. Thank you, God, that many of us are waking up to realize I have seed in my hand, and it might not feel big enough. It might not be what I thought. It might not look like the harvest, but I have something to work with. And I have a barn out back with so much more. Thank you, God, for helping people see today the potential within them that they have been missing, the gifts that they have been overlooking, the seed that is far more powerful than they have realized. In this moment, God, we pause to recognize you are the source and supply. You are the power and presence of love that is at work in our lives. You are with us always. Thank you for being with us. Thank you that you have planned for our safety and joy. Thank you that you come with dreams 1,000 times as wonderful as anything we ever dared to dream or imagine. And I speak that word for somebody praying with me today. If they're afraid that there's not actually a good harvest waiting in their future, I pray that hopelessness is dissolved today. I pray that fear is dissolved today. I pray that their despair is dissolved today into the nothingness from which it came, that they can see a vision again, that they can see a future again, and that they see all the good that you have for them. Your dream is always bigger than ours, not less. It's always greater. I speak the word for every person connected to this training. They are a child of God, which means they are already a member of the most royal divine family. They are already a member of the most successful, most wealthy, most influential family dynasty that there ever has been. We connect to that divine identity now. We connect to that divine power that is all love right now. We connect to that divine authority right now. And I speak this word for every person connected to this video. They are a giver, and they always have something to give. They are a sower, and they always have seed to sow. They are somebody that knows the law and works with the law. And we know as long as the earth remains, there is seed time, there is harvest. So God, I bless them into knowing that the time is now. This is their moment. This is their season. God, just as I felt when I went to that ATM and pulled the $40 out, and I had never done anything like that before, but I was excited because it felt like I was giving to you. And I was excited because I knew that I was sowing a seed. And I was excited because I knew that I was setting something into motion in my life. Just as surely as I knew that, I believe and I declare it is a life-changing day for people listening and watching right now. That this day and this training and this decision set something new into motion for them. It is their time to receive. It is harvest time now. And we move forward with that expectation always. I bless them into peace. I bless them into joy. I bless them into abundance. I bless them into wisdom. I bless them into opportunity. I bless them into success. I bless them into grace. I bless them into favor. I bless them into happiness. I bless them into all the good every good and perfect gift that comes from you, all things that are their highest and best. I bless them now. And specifically, God, I stand in agreement with every single person who this day and this month and this season has decided to partner with me. God, I am so thankful for them. I never take that for granted. I never take that lightly. And I claim the truth today that the most powerful thing in the world is an agreement. And I am in agreement with them. And may they remember the fun story that I have told. And may they remember as they sow that there is somebody who loves them and believes in them on the other end. And I am in agreement, and I'm not leaving the agreement. So God, may they stay in agreement with their vision, with their intention, with the assignment they have given the seed. And I bless them into more than they ever dreamed or imagined. I bless them into 100-fold return. Thank you, God, for this moment. Thank you, God, for the gift of this day. Thank you, God, that we will move forward from this day and we will never look at our lives or our resources the same way again, because everywhere we look, we will see seed, we will see a valuable gift, and we will see the potential and possibility of a harvest. Thank you, God. We release all of these things. We receive now. And so it is. Amen. Thank you all for being part of this training. I bless each and every one of you. Thank you for spending this time with me. This training, as I said, truly is a seed that I am sowing into your life of wisdom and law and principle that I pray goes to work powerfully for you. And you do what you want with the seed and the seed in your life and the seed in your hand. But I bless each and every one of you. Thank you to those of you who are partnering with me. No amount is too small. No amount is too big. It all sets something powerfully into motion in your life. I appreciate you. I believe in you. And the best is yet to come.